Hey Brandon, how's it going?
Hey Marty, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right, so we are honored to have special guest on today, UK great legend. Maybe might be putting it mildly. Former New England Patriot and Cleveland Brown as well. This is Marty Moore. Hey Marty,
Hey, how are you guys?
we are doing great. We're all trying to survive through the times that we're going through right now. How's everything been going for you dealing with all this right now?
It's actually been it's been going okay. I had back surgery 2 months ago and took a week off work and came back. And I'm in the medical field, so we didn't really stop certain elective cases, and all the trauma cases were going. So I was in and out of the hospitals pretty much, through the whole kind of shutdown. And then as we're coming back out of it, I'm in the hospitals again, kind of seeing how things have they're starting to ramp up or trying to ramp up, if you will.
Got it. It's really interesting timing. I don't know if the Lexington Herald knew that we were interviewing you today or not, but there was an article put out this morning by John Clay in the Lexington Herald listing the top 10 defensive football players in UK history, and you were on the list. Did you get a chance to see that yet?
I have not seen that. A lot of that stuff gets printed and people will tell me about it, but I've not seen that from John. He covered me when I was at UK, and I haven't talked to John in a long time, but we are Facebook friends, so we'll send a message here and there. But I was really close to John when I was playing at UK, so I need to thank him for putting me in that top 10.
I think you need to talk to John and tell him that he put you too low. He had you all the way down number 10. I think he needs to have you a little higher up. I think you need to talk to him about that.
Yeah, I might have a little. I might have to look at that list and see if I agree or disagree with that.
Yeah, it was a pretty good list
So,
when you go through it and realize how many really talented defensive players have come through the university. It's really impressive. And on the UK football note, just your 2 cents on how NCAA football and UK football is trying to move forward in the fall. Obviously, there's limitations and restrictions, but do you have just any general thoughts on what you would like to see, or any information that you're hearing or have heard from anybody within the football world there about how they're going to try to work this puzzle in the fall?
well, what I think starting to see is you're starting to see the numbers decline, and we're coming into the summer, and this is very similar. This is a coronavirus, so it's flu-like virus. So I think as we kind of transition through the summer, you're going to have, you see Florida, you see basically all the southern states are opening up. And Kentucky, as far as football in the SEC conference, we cannot let those people get their student athletes trained and them back without getting ours back. So I think the SEC is trying to make everything be fair, but I do think that our student athletes need to get back on campus, in June, and I don't care if they work out in groups of 5, 10, whatever, but we got to start getting those kids back ready, because I do feel like we're going to be going back to school in the fall. And the University of Kentucky being part of the SEC, we are, the other people within the conference are going to put a lot of pressure on us to get our students back and have a football season. Because if there's not a football season, then people don't realize how much revenue is lost. And it's not about revenue. We're talking about, we got to be conscious of what's going on, but we're starting to learn more and more about the coronavirus and washing your hands and using good hygiene, and the elderly people, making sure that they stay. And that's the thing I tell people: this is a violent. You can do everything. If you don't want to be outside, you don't have to be. You can have your groceries delivered. You can stay inside. You can self-quarantine. We're in a day and age where you don't have to go to the grocery store. You don't have to leave your house if you don't want to. So those things are going to have to come into play. But our student athletes need to be back on campus in June, training and being ready for the fall. Because I do think we're going to have a football season, and I do think that we'll probably all have to wear masks to go to the games. and we'll have to wash our hands, and they may take your temperature, but there's going to be certain things that it's going to be like the Super Bowl, right? So I was in the 2001 Super Bowl when 9/11 hit, and when you went to the game, you had to be checked through security, metal detectors, patted down, and that's kind of what it's going to be like going to football games and events probably through the fall into next year. But I do feel like we have the means to be able to make sure people are safe and that we are able to have a season. Now, that's my opinion. Obviously, we've got a governor who's, he's probably sticks to every guideline to the letter, but we need to basically not be the last to join the SEC and risk, having a season without University of Kentucky. So that's the concern I have.
Yeah, Marty, you mentioned I had this on my list of questions to ask you, but since you already brought up playing in the Super Bowl, I thought we'd just go ahead and talk about that. Just how cool is it, man, to play in a Super Bowl? I'm sure it's what you dream of as a kid growing up. Is it just surreal the whole time, or does it eventually calm down to where it feels like it's just another football game? Can you just kind of tell us about that day, your experience playing in a Super Bowl?
The hype of the Super Bowl is what gets you, and you don't really realize it. I tell everybody my biggest regret when I was in the NFL was I never kind of took a deep breath and said, "Man, I'm in the NFL. Like I'm at the highest level that you can aspire to as a professional athlete." And when we played in the Super Bowls, I was always focused on the game, and my opponent, and watching film, and and then you get to that stage, and you've got the halftime show and the pregame show, and Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, they took us out of the city on Thursday night. And, you always kind of wondered why. Well, why aren't we getting out of the city and going to a remote location? Now, as an NFL Legends representative, and I have to go to the Super Bowl and work the Super Bowl, I know why. I understand why. Because it is the biggest event in sports in the world. There's so many people that come to the Super Bowl and not only go to the game, but it's the atmosphere in the city. It's, the influx of fans, and it is larger than life. And when you play in that game and all of a sudden it hits you, you're almost hyperventilating. I look back and watch the Super Bowls, and I'm going, oh, I remember that play. Oh, I remember that play. And you kind of remember certain plays, but it's such a blur when you're playing because by the halftime I was out of energy. Like, I needed a B12 shot, and I needed somebody to – it's like a nap, But
yeah.
It was the adrenaline runs through your body so fast that you just feel exhausted in the second half. And I remember when the Patriots were playing the Atlanta Falcons, and they came back and beat them, I was sitting there watching the game, and I was saying, you got to get to the second half. Like, the Patriots couldn't stop Atlanta's defensive line. I said, you just wait till the second half. They're going to run out of gas. And that's what happens. You run out of gas. And it's kind of the team that can not get their emotions so ramped up and can get that last burst of energy in the fourth quarter that you need to win a football game. And the calmer you are, I think, the better. And that's why you see teams that, have been there, like the Patriots, they get there. And the Super Bowls, they win, and they win those big games, and they're constantly getting deep in the playoffs. Because when they play big games, they view it as it's just another game. It's not the AFC Championship, or it's not a do or die. We got to win this to get to the AFC Championship. It's just another game to them. So they go in loose and relaxed, and fourth quarter their adrenaline's not gone, and they can stay focused. And that's the biggest thing for me is playing in those big games. I learned after the first one, like, calm down the second one. Calm down and, kind of take it in and breathe and, just kind of relax. And you have to learn that as a player. You just don't show up to those big games. Even playing in the SEC, you're playing in huge stadiums and big crowds. But when you get to the NFL, So it's ramped up even more because of the media and, you know, all the attention that goes on with those big games. And it's exciting. It's things you cherish, and you kind of pinch yourself. And, you know, when you kind of look at your rings, you go, man, this is the greatest achievement that one could achieve. And I've been there. So it's, you know, I feel like as a kid, you grow up dreaming about it, and I feel very fortunate that I was able to achieve it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that kind of explains a lot about why the Patriots have been so good. That they have that experience and are able to stay calm through the whole game. I've got to ask you, Marty, I am a big Cleveland Browns fan, full disclosure. So it's an honor not only to talk to a former Wildcat, but a former Brown as well. So I wanted to ask, what are kind of things you've seen as far as just kind of the differences in culture? Because you've got two teams that have basically been at opposite ends of the spectrum in the last 2 decades, and that the Patriots have won multiple championships and the Browns have obviously struggled. There's been constant changes in management and leadership. Could you just kind of compare what it was like to go from New England to Cleveland and then back to New England? What did you kind of feel like the culture differences were there?
Well, I will say this. Winning football is, and winning in everything. It's not football, it's baseball, it's life. You know, as a corporation, if you don't have a culture, you know, I'm in corporate America right now, and everyone talks about getting a culture. You know, and I kind of sit in the meetings and I go, what are you talking about? Like, I've never been bad. I've been part of a winning culture, and I've been part of a losing culture. You know, and so when we do all these events to kind of teamwork and all these things we do as a corporation, I'm going, this is the same stuff I did my entire life, you know, until I got into corporate America. And when I was with the Patriots, the culture was, you know, everyone drove, you know, a mid-size, you know, we drove SUVs and pickup trucks. And we went to work, and everyone was done. If you weren't in that weight room by 7:30, 8 o'clock, we were calling you up going, where are you at? Like, what were you doing last night where you can't get the workout? And we were holding people accountable as teammates. And you know, everyone was gone in the afternoon, and we were spending time together. You know, it was either golfing or cookout or just hanging out. And when I went to the Cleveland Browns, it was pulled in the parking lot. You had Maseratis, Ferraris. And it wasn't about you know, winning. It was about what I got and what, you know, I'm in it for me. And it was a total me versus team when I went to the Cleveland Browns. And to change that culture takes years. And the problem with the Browns is they've never stuck with anyone long enough to get the culture changed with the Cleveland Browns. You know, they've got coaches, but, you know, in the NFL, if you don't win in 3 years, you're out. Well, up in the Cleveland Browns, they got to stick with somebody for maybe that 4 or 5 years. You know, maybe give them a little bit more time to get the right players and the right people on the team and change the culture. Because Bill Parcells would always say, and Bill Belichick, I'm sure, does the same thing, because they're kind of, they do seem very similar. They would just go through the NFL and they would say, they're never going to win. Like, they only had to beat 10 teams in the NFL. They say they self-destruct. You know, they're not organized. You know, there are too many superstars on that team. They're going to collapse. And it was dead on. And if you look at the Cleveland Browns, you go, it's culture. They got a terrible culture. They're never going to win. So if they don't change the culture and get a winning attitude, and in my opinion, not having the best players, you know, and the egos is not it. Sometimes it's a bad thing. Sometimes you get too many egos in the room, and you need role players, and you need leaders, and you need some guys who can make plays, but you don't have to have the best of the best on your team to win. You got to have a collective group of young men that want to put the time in and the effort and the work and are pulling toward the same goal. And that's what the Patriots do well. And if you don't get on the team and you don't get building that, you know, buy into that culture quick, they just get rid of you. There's tons of guys who want to play in the NFL. They'll just get rid of you. Cleveland, they need to put more guys on that bus instead of we're going to bring in all these all-pros. We don't need all-pros in Cleveland. We need guys that are on the bus that are going to – it's kind of like the old Roman ships, right? We need guys who are rowing the boat. And we need a big group of guys, and then we need the drum, a guy banging the drum at the front and getting everybody on the same page. So, yeah, I still work with the Cleveland Browns. I love the organization, bunch of great people, but they need everyone rowing and a couple guys drumming, and I think they'll get things together. But they still have 2 or 3 more years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's only taken them 22 years, Marty. I'm sure year 23 will change, right? Tyler is the perpetual "this is our year" Browns fan. It's every year. Preseason.
This is the year, though.
I went up last year and I drank the Kool-Aid, right? So I went up to their golf outing and I listened to all those guys talk, and I got in the stands when I pulled up to the stadium, and they pulled us up in a big charter bus under the stadium. And I look over, and there's Odell Beckham's orange Rolls Royce with gold rims and gold trim. I thought, God, we're in trouble. I just knew we were in trouble. I'm like, this is the same Cleveland Browns team that I drove into that parking lot and saw a totally different culture, and that culture hasn't changed. So the culture's got to change in Cleveland before they're ever going to become a good football team. They got a lot of talent. And, Jedrick, who they drafted, he's from Lexington, watched him when he was in high school, and the kid matured quite a bit. Obviously, Nick Saban was going to kind of put him in the right direction, but he's a hell of a player. And they're going to have, him be that left tackle and, hopefully solidify their line and, get some good things going. But it's pretty interesting, how things keep changing and the coaching staff keeps shifting every year. So they really need to just make a decision and kind of go with it for 4 or 5 years and let some people have control and that know football rather than all these analysts they've hired and the owner thinking he knows how to coach. And, I'm like, you run your J&Js and your pilots, you know how to do that very well. Let the football coaches coach and give those guys some time. And I think they'll have a good football team because they do have a lot of talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, Brandon, what I'm taking away from that, Jedrick Wills is the missing piece, just like I told you, and Browns will make the playoffs this year, just like I said.
Moving on. I'm done with the Browns conversation. I'll believe it when I see it, so we're going to move on. So Marty, what prompted me to reach out to you was there's been a lot of stuff going on with youth sports. There's been some new guidelines from the state of Kentucky, putting out guidelines for how to return to sports. And I know that you are involved with a group that is encouraging, basically letting the kids play, letting the kids get back to their sports. And in fact, isn't that the name of the group, Let Them Play?
Yeah. I mean, it's a page that was created to, have some people have a voice and, be able to email the Attorney General and, get some people on board, with making some headway on where we're going. We came out with youth guidelines for T-ball, but if you for baseball, for Little League baseball. But let's look at the other sports. Let's look at the kid who can't take a piano lesson, right? I mean, that's typically, it's not a sport, but it's an after-school activity. It's an activity that some kids, they're not allowing that. They're not allowing kids to do karate, soccer, all these different activities that kids do, and sports are a huge part of the culture for children, and especially high school. That was just 12 and under. Let's talk about the high school kids that, they're trying to earn a scholarship or they're trying to get some exposure to maybe get on the radar of a recruiter to maybe have an opportunity to play. And let alone, we talk about, kids go through a lot of emotional time. I mean, there's a high rate of suicide in kids. There's a high rate of, different things and issues that they have. I mean, my dad died at 16 years old, he died in my arms. And if I didn't have football and that support group to get me through that time in my life, I might have went down the path of what my brother did and become a drug addict. So, I just look at it and I go, we got to get these kids out, on the field with mentors, with their parents, and, have them focus on some goals and not be sitting at home on the Xbox, on their phones, getting in trouble. I mean, kids are going to find something to do. If you don't have something structured for them to do, they're going to do something that is not good. And that's my whole thing is we are at a stage where you see other states, Florida, New Jersey, Texas. I mean, everyone is kind of opening up and expanding what they're allowing kids to do. And kids they're not the ones susceptible to this virus. They're not the ones that are getting sick and, having issues. It's the elderly population and people with comorbidities. Those are the ones that have, kind of manage what they're doing. It's not the kids. So why are we not setting guidelines saying, okay, we're going to do it this time? And if something, if we get something that, kind of puts the brakes on it, okay, we'll look at it. But you're not seeing that anywhere across the country. And our governor, he's not really doing anything. He's just waiting for, other people to make decisions because he doesn't want to be the one that steps out on the plank and get it chopped off behind him. And, as a leader, you ran for governor for a reason. You're supposed to lead this state and start leading, because right now you're just waiting for somebody to push you out there, and you're inching out there. Well, let's take some steps and see what happens. But, I'm just frustrated because I see the bigger picture with kids and the impact it has not having sports and not having, something to go to. Just a little, I coached youth football. I ran the league. I still coach my son in high school. I will tell you that on my youth football teams, there were a lot of kids that were divorced. Parents were divorced. I was constantly asked to be a mentor for those kids on my teams. And they looked to me like I was their dad or I was that mentor in their life. So what we've done is we've taken the mentorship away from the coaches and we've put them on the sideline, and these kids right now are looking for something. And I just don't want them to look in the wrong place. And that's why I'm really wanting to let them play. Let them get back on the field. Let's get these kids back doing something positive and being around their friends and things that are positive in their lives. And that's really my whole premise of, let them play, and, why I support that action and get it going, because it's more than wins and losses. It is about the kids and their mental and physical well-being.
What has been the response from the group? So you said your goal was to push this up and have the Attorney General look at some things as well. Have you gotten a response from the folks in the government? Have you heard anything back?
We haven't heard anything back. I think that the way Kentucky's going right now is, everyone, the sports thing, everyone's kind of being, hey, we're going to get it out there. We're going to get out there. So everyone's kind of like, okay, they're going to get it to us. They're going to get it to us. And people are support. I mean, we had over 15,000 people view the page in 2 days. We had, 55 emails, to the Lieutenant Attorney General. We've had responses, but I think everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens. And then if they kind of come down and say, this is what's going on, this is the hammer, then I think you're going to see either people, really blow up the people down, in Frankfurt, or maybe even get a protest together to go down there. But everyone's waiting. And that's that's the problem, though, is we all keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and nothing's being done. So my whole thing is like, people get on the page. Let's get something to where they have to set guidelines. They're not these, well, you can have a practice, but you can't play a game, and you can your travel team can't leave the state, or you're going to lose your high school eligibility. I mean, that's ludicrous to me. I mean, that's your kid. If you want to get a travel team together and go play it in states that are allowing it, why would you take that kid's eligibility away when he comes back just because your state isn't allowing it? It just, some of these things just seem really like they're trying to put handcuffs on kids, and to me that's wrong. And I think that the more people that we make aware of the situation, then the more they're going to look into it. But right now, everyone's like, well, we're going to follow these guidelines, and and they're not really looking at the infection rate, or the increase. Are we having an increase in it, a decrease in it? What's the kids? There's the guidelines set, to me, just don't even make sense. They don't make sense. I think they need to be a state by state, because we don't fall into the same guidelines as New York City. I mean, we don't have that population. We don't have that density. We don't fall in the same, as different others. I mean, Texas, it's 110 degrees down there. It's, people are spread out. We don't, there's different demographics that we as a state don't fall into. So we need to have our own guidelines. We need to have our own parameters on what we will and won't allow. And we're following this standard, but the standard doesn't work all the time for everybody. And we need to really look at, what's working within our geography and make some guidelines and to get our kids back on the field, to get our kids moving again. I find the other thing is kids can't go to a personal trainer. I mean, that's a one-on-one. I can't take my kid to do a personal training with a personal trainer, or my son to go to a hitting coach, or my daughter to take a violin lesson. You can't do that right now. And I'm like, where does that even make sense? We can walk into a restaurant. We're talking about having the Kentucky Derby in September, but we can't have a football game at Commonwealth Stadium or at a high school. I mean, we're in 500,000 people packed in Churchill Downs. Or, that's where things, to me, just, I look at it and go, who is making these decisions? So my focus is on the kids, because I think that we're taking opportunities away from the kids. I think we're taking high school kids that have an opportunity to better their life by getting a college scholarship, or having a chance to do something positive, that be on the team and having friends, and and having that interaction, or furthering your education. But right now, it's all in limbo because we won't make decisions and put guidelines, and not just fluff guidelines, hard deadlines. Here's when we're going to start. Here's what we're doing. And that's really what needs to be done. We don't need any more, well, we're going to see how this goes. No, it needs to be here, and think down the line of when we're going to start, what we're going to do. And then if we have a problem, we can always pull back. But there's certain dates that need to happen to where we can flip the light switch on and people can make solid plans and know what we're doing and what we're not doing. That's the biggest thing for me. It's just the leadership going on right now is not good in my opinion.
Now, so my guess is the kids really want to get back to the sports, but there's always two sides of the coin, right? There has to be a parent or guardian driving these kids to these practices. What are you hearing from parents of these kids? I mean, what is their take on all this? Yeah.
There's not been one parent tell me they don't want their kid to get back. I've not had one parent tell me that I don't want my kid going back and playing. Not one. So if there's a parent out there that says, well, I'm worried about my kid and being around other kids, I tell them, I'm like, well, then, it's your prerogative to you are the adult. So you can tell your son or daughter, hey, I don't want you playing because of this. I think you're going to have to sit out. And that's on them. That's on them and their child. But I haven't had one parent tell me that they do not want their kid playing any sport. I've not heard that.
Do you think that's because they really want them playing sports, or because they've been stuck in the house with them for 3 months?
Well, I think there's two of them.
I'm just asking. I got two boys.
I will say this. I have heard a lot of people tell me that this whole the homeschooling, online deal is the biggest joke in the world, and that their kids didn't learn anything during the spring. I've heard that multiple times, that they said that my son or my daughter did not learn a thing this spring because online classes were just pitiful. And I think if you have a kid that is a smart kid and did it, then they were fine. But the other kids who needed work and needed help, I think they struggled. But I do think that parents do want to get the kid out of the house for any means possible, because they have been with them.
I'm not saying that's the case with me, Marty. I have a friend that told me that, and I was just throwing that out there.
Hey, I've got two college daughters and a son, and they're about to kill each other. So I totally understand it.
That's Marty, I'm actually a former teacher. I spent 8 years teaching middle and high school, and I just want to tell you, I think what you're doing working with young kids is great. I saw so many kids when I was teaching that really could go one of two ways. Down the track, if they had a positive role model, they could be a good influence, and I could always tell. It's kind of like a light bulb coming on when they finally got somebody to work with them and be that person that they could look up to. And I know you with your history in football, that those kids really look up to you and respect you. And I think it's just a great thing for you working with young kids and being a mentor for them. I can tell you it truly does make a difference, because I've seen it happen.
Well, my little kids that I coach, I've been coaching my son since 7, and I will say that when you start coaching, as a coach, I know that my coaches, I looked up to them like my dad. My dad, when he passed away, it was my coaches. Those were my dads. Mike Archer, Larry Newick, Kay, Al Groh, and Dante Scarnecchia from NFL. Those guys, I was with them every day, spending Thanksgiving with them, Christmas with them. If I needed advice, I was calling them and talking to them. And, it's the coach is more than a coach on the field. And, these kids, they learn so many lessons in life from sports. They really do. You learn, teamwork and leadership and never giving up, and, all these things that you have to endure throughout your life, you learn at these critical ages. Even you might have a kid that maybe was on the fence about playing these sports, and all of a sudden he's like, well, I want to play. You may have changed that kid's life forever, but now you took it away. And so now you may have missed an opportunity to change the kid's life. And, and I know that we're going through a pandemic, and I know, I'm not going to quit calling it a pandemic, because I think the media made it a pandemic, in my opinion. I think we were going through a very bad virus, and something we did not know enough about at the time, and we shut everything down to make sure the hospital systems had everything they needed, for all these patients to get there who were infected. And we didn't see that in Kentucky. And everyone's talking about the second wave. Well, we didn't see a first wave. We're not going to see a second wave. And so those things that we've kind of gone through the tunnel, now as we come out, we need to get those opportunities back before they're lost. And so that's kind of my, hey, let it play. Let's get these kids who, we're thinking about it. Let's get them on the field. Let's change their lives. Let's help them, become, maybe a better father or, mother, or, let them learn a little hard work and adversity and, time management, all those things that you learn playing sports. And I think that we just don't need to keep on the sideline watching. We need to be proactive, and we need to be doing more to get them back on the field.
So if people listening to this interview want to join the group, can you just, again, it's the Facebook group. What's the official name, in case anybody wants to search that?
So it's let play, and then Let Them Play is the page. So if they just go to Let Them Play 2020, they can go on there. There's the Attorney General's email. You can email him, just your concerns, post on the page. It's being monitored by the state, and we can let people know how we feel. There's a lot of people out there that want the kids to play. I think some people are fearful to, stick their neck out there because, certain people just don't want to be involved. There's other people that, think that someone else is going to do it for them, so they're not going to, but I encourage everybody to do something. It's the old adage of, if you don't got $100 to give me a penny. So just send a few words. Doesn't have to be much, but we need to get some help and get some momentum to put some pressure to get the kids playing again. And that's all I'm trying to do.
No, that makes sense. And, as part of our website and our podcast, we always try to give all sides to the story. I think that, the side that says to, shut everything down, we can't come out of the house for several months, there's enough coverage on that. So we just try to give the other side. And I think what you're doing is a great service for everyone. If nothing else, just to give voice to the other half of the population that may think differently. So that's great. Moving beyond all that, I'm glad we got to talk about it. Just in general, before we wrap up, what do you think about what the UK football team has done the last couple of years and the job Stoops and his staff have done? I'm just curious.
Here's what I think. That I think that Coach Stoops and his staff have done a wonderful job. And these guys, they're recruiting, they're working. Coach Stoops has brought in great coaches. If you go through that staff of coaches, everyone's going after our coaches every year. That's a great sign. We've never had it. UK has always been a stepping stone for a coach. Lovie Smith was here when I played. Lovie moved on to, have a great career in the NFL and, win a Super Bowl, and now he's head coach in Illinois. I can go on about all these different coaches that use Kentucky as a stepping stone. Coach Stoops has kept these coaches here. And, we have had some people leave, and we've let some people go. But I think that the culture over at the University of Kentucky has changed. It has changed. The mentality's changed. Those kids don't go into games going, we're going to get beat. They go in, we're going to win. And the staff recruits their butts off. They work their butts off. And I think they've done a great job. I think Mitch Barnhart has done a great job, by allowing, all those pieces that need to take place in regard to retaining coaches and in regard to building the facility. Mitch has done a great job with that. I really felt that when Brooks was here, we were going to take the next level. When Joker came in, and I don't want to get into that, but we digress. But Stoops has brought us back, and I see nothing but upside. I see us, 7, 8, 9 win seasons consistently, and then hopefully we'll have one of those seasons where we catch magic in a bottle, and we've got these kids, and we win the SEC East, and we have a legitimate shot of winning the SEC. I mean, I don't think we're going to be doing that next year, but I see some great young talent that's on that team, and us getting better recruits. So I think, in 4 or 5 years, you may see us, contending at that level. But we're definitely going to be a bowl team every year going forward. Last year, talk about coaching, to go to a bowl game last year with the quarterback situation we had, I I don't think I think those coaches coached their butts off last year, just based on the pure fact of what they were dealing with from an offense and the offensive line and the scheme. I don't think you could have gotten a better coaching staff to coach us through those games in our season like they did. I really don't. I think they did a tremendous job. And I just hope that we have a quarterback that can do the things that Eddie wants to do, because I think that he's really been hamstrung over the last 2 years, not really having a quarterback that can do the things that he would like to do in the offense. So if that can happen, I think you're going to see more dynamic offensive play, and it's going to open things up, and we'll be more exciting than we've been in the past. But we're going to win. We're going to win some games, and I'm just couldn't be more prouder of our coaches and what they've done.
Well, Marty, we really appreciate you coming on today. You've given us ample time here to cover a lot of different topics and talk about youth sports. Really appreciate you coming on, and we may pick your brain a little bit as the football season goes along, and maybe ask for your 2 cents on any topics that come up through the season. You're obviously very knowledgeable. The people of the state respect you and your opinion greatly. You gave a lot to the university. For Tyler, I know it's a big deal because you were a Cleveland Brown. So you're not a Patriot. You're a Cleveland Brown to Tyler.
That's right.
Hey, Tyler, I did post on my Twitter. I threw out they had done throwback Brown pictures, and there's a picture of me and Wally Rayner, and I think it's Orpheus Roy tackling Eddie George against the Titans. Oh, and that was the last game I played in Cleveland. About 9 o'clock, it started snowing, and by the end of the game, there was about 5 inches of snow, and we were not good that year at all. And I just remember tackling Eddie George and sliding about 5 feet on snow every time you tackled him. And they posted that picture, and I was like, oh man, this could be football season in Kentucky. If they delay the season, we could be playing in January in the snow. So, but we'll see.
Hey Marty, what's your Twitter handle so people can follow you on Twitter?
I believe it's just Marty Moore 58. I'm sure. I think it might be _58. Marty Moore _58. I'm not a big Twitter guy. I mean, my NFL job, I have that Twitter and Instagram and things, but I don't do a lot. I'm doing more with it now because my son, the way that he's being recruited is through Twitter. It's crazy. I mean, all these coaches, they follow the kids and tweet about them, and so I'm posting his workouts and his videos. And, I do more Twitter now than I have just because of my son and his recruiting. So it's interesting.
Marty, yes or no? Do the Browns make the playoffs this year?
Not this year. They'll
I
have
told
a
you.
7-9 season. They'll have a 7-9 season. They'll have a 7-9 season, and you got to understand the conference they're in. I mean, they got Pittsburgh and they've got Baltimore. So they'll probably go, maybe 3-5 in the conference, and then I don't see them winning, more than 7 games in the non-conference. That means you go 7-1 in non-conference. That's not going to happen. So I think that they've got maybe next year that they'll beat maybe Baltimore once and Cleveland once and roll the Bengals, and they'll have a 4 or 5 win conference record, and then they'll be 10 games. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how you got to look at it. You got to look at their conference and how many conference games can they win, and that's where I'm like, maybe 8-8. If it's really bad, they could maybe hit the playoffs at 8-8, but 9-7, 8-8, 9-7. That's really stretching it in the AFC, where you got teams last year that were winning 10, 11 games as wild card teams. A couple more years.
Yeah.
All right. I guess there's always next year.
That's always next year, right?
That's awesome. Well, Marty, that's hilarious. First, thank you for giving Tyler a dose of reality. I do appreciate that. But we really appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks so much for giving us the time. And if you don't mind, we'd love to have you on as a guest once football season gets ramped up. And if you have any more news on the youth sports, please feel free to contact us, and we'll share any information that you have.
I will for sure. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Marty.
you, Marty.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.